I'm poking Facebook. I've always done.
Yep, I've got the tablet so I can see when it's. Yep. It's.
You're going to be well disappointed.
I mean, I can, but you don't want me to. Doggy!
Okay, cool. Yep. Live stream all functional. Getting noise out of it. I've turned it off again. I nearly threw my tablet straight onto my metal sheet of Bakemono miniatures.
That seems like a.
I'm ready.
I'm watching.
I expect a drum solo. Indeed. Oh, are we like picture live? All right. I will wait. Some major excavation going there.
On YouTube, yes, because I figured it would be confusing if there was multiple people being the same person. Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
He's actually black, I guess.
So I'm shorter than you this time, then. You just can't see it. Yeah.
I was supposed to look like Ben, but I haven't done that today. So.
I'm not far off Jason.
I think I'm still winning.
I only remember when you tell me, because obviously I've seen you a bunch, really. So
That's because I haven't said anything, Matthew.
Right. Yes.
Hold on, let me turn the live stream, unmute it, and play it through my speakers. And there's like a couple of minutes delay, so.
Yeah, I can hear Andy on the live stream. I don't know about me.
The joys of modern.
technology. It's so much easier.
I'm sure to then you this. You just want to hit the arc.
I was supposed to look like Ben, but I haven't done that today.
I'm not far off Jason.
Now I can hear Gordon on the stream.
Yeah.
Is this a Ben problem?
I mean, it was you earlier.
I can't hear you on the stream. I can see you gesticulating, talking about your red dreadlocks. But I'm not getting any sound from you.
So, almost working. I only remember when you tell me because obviously I've seen you at Barnes really. So.
Testing.
Said anything, Matthew.
Why?
I think I'm working now.
Cool.
Okay, it's got like a 2-minute delay, so I'm
Let me turn the live
checking.
stream unmuted and
God.
from these speakers. And there's like a couple of minutes delay, so.
So someone in the chat will probably
Yeah,
say something.
I can hear Andy on.
It's so much easier.
Bated anticipation.
Now I
Yeah.
can hear Gordon on the stream.
Yeah.
Wow, it is behind, isn't it? Jesus.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was you earlier.
I can't hear you on the stream. I can see you gesticulating, talking
Oh,
about your red dreadlocks.
So yeah, hopefully that's working, and any second now, the chat is gonna catch up. Please, I really can't do any more
Oh,
troubleshooting. this
yeah, I
evening.
think I thought I heard a Ben on the stream.
I mean,
Okay, it's got like a 2-minute delay, so.
I feel like I'm in the Matrix now.
Yeah, it was time
Oh,
traveling.
I've
Okay,
experienced this before.
okay.
we're
Nate can
hearing
hear.
you apparently.
Cool.
So,
That's good. Okay, right. So, all my wit and all that information I provided has been missed.
it's lost to the ether.
The world is a lesser place because of it. So, welcome everyone. Thank you for putting up with the delay. We had some tech and life problems, but we seem to be there now. Gordon is represented by a green blob this evening. We said something about haircuts, but I'm not going to go over it again. So, yeah, I'm still paranoid that people can't hear me, but let's carry on. We are going to talk for a little bit about the Brotherhood, that box set and the idea behind it. Maybe a little bit about winners and Ryujin, and then we're going to take questions which Ol has put together into a Google Doc for all of us. So yeah, Gordon, I figure you can start telling us about the idea behind the Brotherhood.
Sure, yeah, definitely. So, for anyone that doesn't know, generally what we do within the team is we correlate ideas and we come up with some pretty cool concepts, I think, generally speaking. And so it was actually Jason had an idea a while back about doing a box set that would be entirely mercenaries, Ronin, and so that there would be no cross-contamination between them. Each member would work on a concept independent of each other. So I must be honest, at first I was a bit like, well, that's a bit too radical for us. You know, you might get some quite crazy ideas. But, you know, it kind of festered a bit. And obviously we discussed a bit internally then and took the decision that it was probably a good idea. And so we all kind of then went off to do our own individual concepts. We had a very very limited brief and restrictions, so it could have been open to pretty much anything, just that it had to fit within the Bushido world, obviously. Other than that, you could do pretty much what we wanted. So I think it was quite exciting. I think we came up. There was a couple that didn't quite make the through the draft stages, but I think fundamentally we ended up with a really great box set. I think they work really well. The concepts look great. There's some cool and unique ideas in them, and I think beyond it as well is that most of them have really good backstories, as well. So it creates some depth within each character that was created, and that with it. So it took a while. I mean, it was possibly over a year maybe in the works to get to where we were, possibly even slightly longer. I can't remember the actual initial start date for it, but yeah, so that's kind of how the Brotherhood got born. And obviously the idea is from the onset was that it was kind of, as Hiroto had traveled round through Jiwa and the Empire as a whole, it would be just people that he had met along the way, and that owed him a gratitude or service or loyalty in some way or other. And so everyone obviously developed the character with those criteria in mind.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's similar to the Wolf Clan release, in a narrative sense, where like it's a way of moving things a little bit forward, getting people to understand the movements of things, working towards this Shiho release and Hiroto's return as not a fat drunk.
Yeah,
I think that's been pretty cool.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree. I think anything that's a narrative driven is, for me, is fantastic. I'm not generally like a competitive player. I know there's been some talk lately about Bushido being relatively a competitive rule set, but I'm not competitive when I game. So, for me, anything that's narrative driven, I love. Do you know what I mean? It kind of adds depth to the world. It adds realism for me. Do you know what I mean? And that kind of stuff I love. So I think, as people will see, we've done the, as you said, the Open Rebellion, the Wolf Clan box set, obviously Hiroto, and we've definitely got some more in the works along the same kind of line. Just bring that kind of depth, that storytelling element, that cohesiveness within the warband. And I think it works really well. Personally, I think it works really well. And I know I keep saying it, but it just adds a lot of depth for me, and that's what I like.
Yeah, I think
I was trying to find space there to call you a filthy casual.
I think for me, Bushido's rule set is, I don't know, I like a rule set which can be competitive, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm super competitive all the time that I play. I mean, all might say I'm lying out of my ass, but yeah. And
So you can easily play a tight competitive rule set as a narrative game, but if you just write a narrative game that's got loose rules and a bit woolly interpretations, you can't play it as a competitive game. So it's clear, if you want a game to do both, you have to start with a good tight rule set. Which, apart from the mistakes, I think Bushido is right. We've got a few errors for the errata coming up, but the core of it's very well put together, and I hope I haven't ruined it too much with the new edition. But from there, we can easily branch out and add narrative elements to it. Whereas if we'd written a very loose RPG style woolly game and then tried to make a tournament out of it, I think you'd just have 20 people in a room arguing for a day. So
yeah, I think you and I have talked about maybe doing a podcast episode about like not everything has to be necessarily competitively costed and things like that. Like sometimes it's nice just to have some narrative. It's the special cards where that really comes across, but like things like the knife you can give to the crab and this sort of thing. Like, I think it's important
the
to
memes.
still have fun.
Yes, but that's quite different from the structure of the rule set. Like fun options doesn't take away from the fact that you still need a tight rule set to build it on.
So right, let's go. I've got to find my buttons. Let's talk a little bit about each individual concept that we worked on. So I can't remember whose I left visible, so it might be no one. So I'm going to transition And of course, it's Alistair's concept, and Alistair's not on the call. So, Gordon, seeing as you are related,
Sure.
you can take this one.
Talk through it. Yeah, definitely. No hassle. So, Alistair, if you don't know, does quite a lot of the fluff and the law writing and stuff for us. And so when he was given the opportunity to do a concept, because he doesn't generally work with us on that, he was quite excited to do it initially, I may add. I think once he realized there was actually quite a lot of work involved in it, to be honest with you, I think he changed his mind quite rapidly. Now, anyone that knows Alistair will know pretty much that he is probably Iron Maiden's #1 fan, to be honest with you. And I'm sure a lot of you will see the album cover for The Trooper. And so that's fundamentally the groundworks for the Banner Bearer, which we did do a bit more work than that, but I think at the core, that's where it came from. So in his lore, he's essentially the remnants of the Shiho army that was defeated. And he's kind of gone off into the swamps, and he's lived there ever since. In his mind, the war's never lost, and obviously with Hiroto returning, he still sees him as the rightful heir and ruler of Jewa, and so he's more than happy to kind of throw in with him and be a loyal servant again. So that's kind of where he fits into the whole plot along the line.
I think this guy fits into that narrative advancement thing possibly more than all the others, because he is a Shiho model.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So I guess like Jason, obviously, like all of us had a little input into how our models would work, but Jason obviously is the final arbiter of what's gonna work in the game. So I guess Jason, how did you? I don't know. How did this guy work for you? Like, what was the opportunity?
It was an interesting one because he didn't send very much at all. I think he sent a picture of the album cover.
I think all of us sent pictures around to everyone, and all I can remember is just there's the Iron Maiden cover from it. I'm sure there was more later.
The other thing I remember he was talking about, the old thing about World War II, and like 30 years later they'd find a guy in a jungle who didn't realise the war had ended, and they had to go and find his NCO to convince him to put his arms down because they weren't fighting the Americans anymore. And so those were the only two things that we had. The idea for a banner bearer was in the Shiho file originally, though, so it got adapted from all the samurai guys were getting a banner bearer with cool options for banners as in equipment cards. So we sort of moved it on from there, and we said, well, if he's been in the original thing was in the jungle, but we realised it would be the swamps outside Segoya. So he was obviously one of the very few who survived the Battle of Segoya. And obviously that area is now where Kato did his experiments and developed the idea for Kirai. And that's where this idea came from, that he thought he was going mad because he kept seeing his friends coming back and attacking him. And then it sort of got even worse when somebody said, no, they are actually zombies. And that sort of was the last straw, and he actually did go mad as soon as somebody told him that he was really seeing these things and they weren't figments of his imagination.
You really are in a horror movie. It's not really a reassuring line.
So that's why he gets the rule about having everything causes fear. Because he's now having the visions that he thought he was having before. So he sees anybody coming at him and he thinks it's a zombie of some kind. But he does obviously have the ability to get rid of those things, and he's got steadfast as well. So it means he's not completely useless, even though he's getting this frightened marker. But it's quite thematic, and if you can get rid of it with the rally feat or with whatever else, he's actually really good at fighting zombies now. So he's been doing it for the entire time that the Shiho have been missing. Somebody actually asked him one of the questions about him as well. He's definitely a model that will work with the main Shiho at least as much as he works with the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood aren't that bothered about fear, but there might be more added later. So he will only get better as we add more models which might have lower key statistics or no bravery or anything like that. But he does work very well because he, like I say, he was originally in the She-Ho file as a She-Ho model. So once they all come out, I think his banner will be very good, and he will fit in there easier than he will fit in this Brotherhood box.
Yeah, there's I guess a sneak peek there, just looking at his types, with the loyal keyword, which obviously ties in with his banner as well. Where I believe he's the only model who has that at the moment.
Currently, yeah. But I think people can work out, especially from the banner, that there'll be a lot more to go.
Yeah, of course. I think the way that you structured the Brotherhood theme is it means it's open-ended. Like you can add the text to any future model saying, oh, you know, if Hiroto's recruited, then you can go into the warband. That just it allows the Brotherhood to expand if Hiroto's adventures, more of them come to light.
Yeah, definitely. So
I mean, even as far as the playtesting stuff, the Retainer's actually got another model for this box, which we couldn't get a good artwork on, if I remember rightly. Gordon will remember. But I won't say anything about it because it might show up at some point. But there's definitely more concepts out there that can be added to this kind of thing. And obviously, even outside of the box, there's Eldest Brother, if nobody else.
Yeah, I'm still looking forward to fielding him. Right. Who should we go with next? Gordon, do you want to talk about Kendish?
Yeah, sure. Kendish. So Kendish was my concept in it. And oddly, as this came out, for those of you who don't know, I do love any martial arts, especially mixed martial arts, but any martial arts, any art form. And I happened to be watching a fair bit of wrestling at the time. And as spirals go, when you viewing something, you tend to just go in modes of paths. And I came across obviously the Mongolian traditional wrestlers, and I just loved it. I loved the theatre that was involved with it. I love the thematics, the aesthetics, everything about it just really struck out at me, and I instantly knew that was going to be the kind of guy that I was looking to do. So from that kind of as a base ground, I looked, further, dug a bit deeper, and came up with Kendish as we know him. So I wanted him to be loyal to a degree where there was no question. And so I built a backstory for him where he had essentially saved Hiroto's life while they were battling some kamis, and in it he had done good deeds. And then obviously in a short story version of it, he travels around with Hiroto for a while. They have a load of adventures together. He's a simpleton, so he wants to settle eventually. Hiroto finds a old samurai master that's willing to look after him, and he's happy to part ways, and that's where they part. This is in the mainland. So one story leads to the other, that there's some agents that are searching for Hiroto, since he's the heir to the Shio clan. And they obviously tie Kendish in as an accomplice. And when they eventually track him down, they manage to kill the old man that now he sees as a father figure. And so on that note, Kendish obviously is enraged at this point, and he goes to seek out Hiroto again to avenge the man he now perceived as his father. And obviously it gave me the opportunity to bring in a slightly different look. The idea was that obviously he was further afield from Jiwa, so somewhere on the mainland. So aesthetically, I could bring in the Mongolian style, and obviously the wrestling that I quite liked too. So that's kind of where the storyline went with him, and I think it builds quite a depth into him. I didn't actually, when I briefed it, think about the stupid trait, because it's one of the ones I don't particularly like, but he's ended up with it nonetheless. But I still think the model works. I think he's quite cool, and I think aesthetically he's come out really good. I couldn't have asked for it anymore, both in concept, art, and obviously in the render now. I think he just looks great. So
yeah, so I should probably I meant to say this up front, but when you started talking to me about the concept of the Brotherhood box, and that each of us was coming up with a different concept for it. One thing I really wanted to try was to get a different sculptor for each of them, to really, like, I don't know, like highlight that disparate group, that merry men sort of thing. That didn't quite pan out. We had to move one sculptor over to cover for another in the end. But when we brought Alistair on board, this guy definitely was like an obvious match for him. He does big guys with big muscle groups like better than almost anyone I know. And the previous guy, Trooper, that was done by Andrew, who's done a bunch of sculpts for us, and will be returning soon as well. So yeah. Yeah, I don't know, Jason. Do you want to add anything about his rules? I suppose there's a note about Stupid and his complex feat.
Yeah, so that's one that we should definitely have caught, but it will be in the errata that he can use his feet despite being stupid.
I think it highlights that even the people who write the game can get stuck between editions, because Stupid didn't used to do that. So
no, it did not.
Yeah,
it just used to shut models down.
I think the feat probably also went through several revisions as well. So, yeah. But yeah, it should definitely be caught at some point. The one thing that's good about the Stupid rule is, though, it does let him be 16 rice, which is incredibly cheap for what he does. The strongest rule is deceptively good for melee. It makes him an amazing melee model, even though he's only 3 melee dice. And on top of that, just the amount of wound boxes he's got is tremendous for such a low rice cost. And he can only have that because he can't do scenario actions, basically.
Yeah.
So he's if you want somebody to beat people up, he's really good for that, even without considering his amazing complex feat that he's got.
Well, while you're talking, Jason, let's make it your turn.
Oh, it's me.
It's you. I'm going to bring your guys up. Oh, no, there we go. So the two lone swordsmen.
So yeah, people have been asking about the name for starters. I imagined that was sort of their stage name for the fighting pits. So these two, at some point in his travels, Hiroto was captured as a slave and put in the fighting pits, and as a quite proficient trained samurai, he did rather well in there. He met these two while he was in the fighting pits. They were fighting every night in duels to the death somewhere off in the Empire somewhere. And Hiroto decided to escape, and when he did, these guys were already outside, because it turned out that they were not slaves and just went into the fighting pits anyway. Part of the core of their background I wanted to do was to be for them to be a bit mysterious. Like, it doesn't explain who they are, it doesn't explain where they're from, or how they can do the abilities that they've got. Hiroto can't recognize their fighting style, so we don't know much about them. Maybe that'll get explained in future releases, or future models will be similar and people can start piecing things together. But for now, they're just quite mysterious.
So they're handsome as well.
I do really like how the artwork came out, and the models almost exactly replicate it. The idea of them being in harmony with each other, so that they're the two poses are, one of them's attacking while the other one hangs off, and then obviously they would swap over and attack in turn with each other, so they give the extra melee assist penalties. I like the different kind of armor. People have been asking where that's from. I think it's partly historically inspired and partly just sort of made up. I don't think it's all taken from one particular place. but I do like the way they've come out, and I think the rules have worked quite well for them as well. People are sort of looking at them and wondering if they can fit them in the various factions that they work for. So I think they've done their job at making people wonder what they are and how they can be used.
Yep, it also shows off your love of communal cards.
So
yeah, if only they were in the rule book, that would have helped.
Yeah, the sculptor for these guys was Mark Keenan. He also did Andy's model that we'll get to in a little bit. But he sent me, when he first started these guys, he sent me some of his work in progress, and he was using old Kurosawa movies for references for the faces on these two. Whether that comes across in this tiny little render on the screen, I don't know. But
cool nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he did a really cool job. I think we've got some questions around them a little bit later, but because of time, we need to forge ahead. Andy, do you want to go, or shall I?
Yeah, sure. I can do mine. Mine's pretty simple, I guess.
There he is.
Okay. So Shosu was a premier, or the premier exorcist of the Jwa Isles for a bit. He got called in by one of the Shiho daimyo to exorcise an evil spirit plaguing the daimyo's son. It took him 3 nights to attempt or possibly succeed. But on the 3rd night, there's lots of screaming involved, so the daimyo servants came in. They found Shosu strangling the young boy, and then someone chucked a lantern at him. And then he ran off screaming into the night, as you do. So, being a premier exorcist, he was partially successful in that, yes, he got rid of the evil spirit from the boy, but now he's sometimes possessed by it. I designed... Sorry?
That seems like a problem.
Yep. Well, it's reflected in every time he uses a chi feat, he gets a control marker. So, it makes... There are some sort of big brain plays you can do with him, and I did design him with that in mind, like, okay, there is certain things he's... Like removing a single control token, single controlled marker, he's brilliant at. Yeah. And he's good at removing just general annoying stuff, but it will cost you to do that.
I really like the way that it's almost like emergent how good he is at removing control tokens, but then he's an exorcist, so it makes perfect sense that he'd be really good at that. But it's not just explicitly written down, it comes about as a result of the way that the rules are implemented.
So that was... I was quite proud of how that came out. I did remember getting a message from Jason saying if he removes control marker, he gains one and then removes the other one. And I was like, yes, intended. Thumbs up.
I think I remember when we were talking about when we were all putting our lists, or not our lists, our concepts in. It was looking like everyone's was going to be a little pricey, and you were like, "I'm just going to wait to see what everyone else does before I fully, I don't know, write out my guy so that he can fill, but also not just in cost, but also in function, I suppose."
Yeah, it sounded to me when we first did our initial designs that or announced our concepts, I thought everybody was going to make essentially a frontliner type model. And I realized the warband was going to have a very big gaping hole and support section. Yeah. So I was like, right, there's no condition removal, no state removal in this warband, so let's see what we can do. And then the idea of the exorcist was born. I like the idea of the flawed exorcist. Or the cursed exorcist, I succeeded, sort of.
I did the job. It's not worked out too great for me, but...
Yep. Your boy's totally fine. But, so he met... Basically, the way the evil spirit continually whispers to him, so he's going sort of crazy, but he's discovered if he gets blindingly drunk, he doesn't have to worry about that. And that's how he sort of blundered into Hiroto. And since he's part of the Shisen Nagoe, he viewed it as sort of, this is my chance at redemption. I failed that other Shiho Daimyo guy. Let's see if I can make it work with this one. And of course, Hiroto Osu being a drunkard, they sort of, they hit it up like good pals instantly. And
if you want to meet Hiroto before he takes control of the Eagle Clan, then the best way to do that is to drink in as many bars as possible.
Yep.
Or fight in a pit.
But unlike the other people in the Brotherhood, he is part of the Michi faith, so he will work for any of the clans of the Michi faith. So he does bring a lot of condition removal to factions that usually don't have it. And because he's possessed by an evil spirit, he will work for Cult. So Cult at last have a really strange form of condition removal.
Cool.
So
Sure.
there is further backstory. I did write out his backstory like a page, but I don't think we've got time to go through all of it.
No, I wonder if maybe we put something together at some point and put it out there.
Yep. Another Juma Ring law post.
Yeah, why not?
Yep. Right.
Right, I'm going to cover my guy quickly, if I can remember where the buttons are. Right, so I had like 3 ideas, I think. One of them was pretty wacky, which was like a Jewish golem from Europe or something like that, and I just couldn't figure out a way to make that work. Another one was like a Dutch trader or something, but what I really wanted to do was have a cavalry model, have a horseman, partly because it would give a very limited test ground for such a model in Bushido, because there is cavalry obviously, but not that much, and no horses until now. So yeah,
Turtle cavalry. Turtle cavalry.
Turtle cavalry and monster cavalry. There's the bat and the Nian.
And human cavalry. We got the drummers riding.
Yeah.
Best cavalry.
So, the background that I wrote for this guy was essentially that he wanted to see a bit more of the world. So he left his tribe and was travelling around, just not a sword for hire, just doing odd jobs and things like that. But the work sort of dried up. He needed the money, and so he started becoming a sword for hire. But ethically, he's not down for killing people for money. So when he ended up having to work for a group of bandits, he basically resigned himself to okay, I'm not going to kill anyone unless they get too close, and so that's where the rule around him entangling people with his bow comes from. So one day the bandits decided to attack this lone dude walking along a path. It turned out to be Hiroto. Real bad idea. Things went south very quickly for everyone except for Batu, who he was cornered, and he managed to fire his arrow into Hiroto's sandal and just about get past. And he thought he got away when everything went black. And Hiroto had chucked one of his bottles of sake at the back of his head. Wakes up the other side of a campfire from Hiroto, and they have a little chat. And Batu has served him since, is the idea. Rules wise, he's got headshot, which originally he was going to have flaming arrows, but I just couldn't get my head around how that made sense on a horse. You're just going to burn your horse with whatever you're trying to light the arrows for. So in the end, we ended up with headshot because Ol knows, and quite a lot of other people do, that I hate Rise. So I wanted someone who could do something about it. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, and I thought the sidestep attack, but still being able to do damage, was quite a nice representation of like the hit and run tactic that you'd employ as a light cavalryman. Yeah, I think he's not too far from what I originally wrote out, Jason, is he?
No, I think the main thing we looked at, you were one of the people who gave me almost a full profile, and it got tweaked a bit between the two of us. But the main thing I think is that we made him a tribesman, which means that he does fit better into the dissension, and we'll see what it's like. I think we've said we'd like to try and do a sort of a more plain cavalry tribe that's different to the hill tribe at some point, and if people like this model, maybe that can happen. Email Gordon,
we can't see Gordon doing this, so we can say whatever we like. He just, he can't stop us. I just heard groaning, and that's it.
It does show the limitations of cavalry in a skirmish style game because he's 20 rice. So you're looking at 4 models if you want to take all cavalry.
Yeah, I think that would be
he'd probably be on the cheaper side. But having said that, passing strike would probably become a quite a prevalent thing, especially in his tribe. Banzai, unstable, and obviously cavalry would be the key cavalry traits. So it'll be nice to see how people use him if he's far too mobile, and having him as a run-in that different people can use might encourage more people to play him, and then we can sort of go from there and see if we ever want a full cavalry list at some point that's not Bakemono.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see what people do with him.
Hopefully they kill a lot of Kairai.
Oh, we can hope. Yeah, I'm currently trying to write a list with him, going back and forth. But Dissension is my latest love, so he's probably going to be in there at some point.
Now, with all this anti-Kairai tech, do you feel Death in the K has been pushed out of the meta?
We'll see.
One can hope.
Well, now it's all skeleton meta.
Yeah,
I'm fine with those. I'm happy to face those. That's fine.
Someone in the chat is asking about Minamoto cavalry with heavy barding. I just don't see any horse in the JORLs being able to take the weight of a Minamoto suit of armor and have its own armor.
I mean, they'd be really slow.
There is something worth mentioning that this guy was Mongolian based, and so the horse also was inspired by that. So he's a small horse. I didn't go full pony on the sculpt because I think it still needs to convey speed and look light. That's why again he's on 40mm base. But like you can imagine a Western cavalry, a Western knight being on like a 50mm in Bushido scale. So.
Yes, Tony Stratton raises the valid point of how would the Minamoto horse earn its armor?
That's it. Yeah, a blacksmith would have to decide that it was worthy enough to be blessed with a suit of armor. One thing I will say about that, and I'm really not promising anything, but Gordon is always telling me that the samurai factions need more fantastical stuff, and that the Minamoto were mostly humans, and that the Prefecture of Ryu are mostly humans, and we need more fantastical stuff. So. You never know. If we do cavalry, they might not be riding horses.
Dragons?
Can we have an armoured bear riding a bear?
Dragon riders would be fun. That would be great. So we're not planning on cavalry for the Minamoto yet, though. We've got plenty of stuff to do before that.
I'm trying to see if from the chat if someone's trying to suggest names for the horse. Someone's saying Seabiscuit, Black Beauty, Spirit. He does have a name. Okay, so
I'm a horse riding a human.
It's got to be Seabiscuit that gets my vote now.
We'll look up the Japanese for Seabiscuit.
He's already got a name. He's not Seabiscuit.
That might be what you call it, mate.
It'd be umi. I don't know what biscuit is in Japan. What's a rice cracker? Oh, never mind.
No, we don't have time for it. Badly translated Japanese.
Next. Yep. On to the next item.
There we go. That's the Brotherhood. So
Okay.
Well, I think that's it. Does anyone? I haven't missed a sculpt, have I? No. Does anyone have anything else to say about the Brotherhood?
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is it's probably, again, similar to the Wolves. It's important to notice that they're not a starter box. I think we might have sort of overestimated our influence on that, and a lot of people have been buying the Wolves and are looking at these and saying, I'm getting into Bushido with these because they look awesome. And fair enough.
Deep end, yeah.
They are a bit more complex than just, especially these guys, because we all made them separately. So they have literally no synergy.
Speak for yourself.
They,
one model has some ideas, but
one model does things that the others don't. But I mean, that was the point. And if you want to play them together, it's still pretty cool. Or you can play them with Hiroto or eldest brother, and that gives you a bit of leeway to change the points up a bit. And also, they do have 10 special cards, which might give you a bit of a glimpse into what the Shiho special cards might be like. There's a lot of unexpected plans and crazy maneuvers and things like that in there. I think it was a great set for pushing the story forward a bit, letting everybody have a chance to give me a week off of profiling, which was good.
I was thrilled because I'm never going to win a Masters, so I actually got to design a model.
But yeah, I think the reaction to it's been really good, so I wouldn't be surprised if we did more things similar to this in future.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely. Cool.
So I think I just blew my segue there, because I'll never get to win a Masters and design my own model. Speaking of which, so the rest of this release is the winners. I keep referring to it as the winners wave because that's how we have been talking about it, but of course it's all coming together in one. These 4 models from which competitions have they been from?
So the 4 models was they all were Masters events. So we ran an event at Adepticon in the US, for those of you that don't know. So the winner of that event, obviously our own Masters event we run here in the UK at UK Games Expo, and the Dutch ran an event where we gave them sanctioning as a Masters, so they got to develop one. And then the 4th one was from the UK Masters again from the previous year. So I built the 4 together. And yeah, I mean, it's quite an interesting prize, and it's always a bit daunting to work with people, because they've kind of got a carte blanche on what they're going to want to create in terms of, their ideas and their concepts and stuff. Jason's quite lenient as well when it comes to how they want it to work in the game, so he's happy to work with them to get, to make sure that it works as they envisioned it would work in the games without breaking the game. Like Master Enos does, but anyway, that's a different story. That was the 4 events that these models were based on. It took us a bit longer than anticipated to actually get them done. The intention was always to try get them done within a year of the event happening, but best laid plans, and so there's been slight delays, and we got to this point where we just thought they were all at a development stage. We could release them as a set and kind of start a clean slate. So as we go forward now, we'll hopefully when we run Masters, there'll be a bit slightly quicker turnaround in terms of when that model actually makes an appearance. So yeah, I mean, they're all quite different. We managed to slot them into the factions quite well. I think they're all quite unique. And I think, the designer, the winner's quite happy with how they came out. The only one we don't have contact with is the guy that won the Dutch Open. So I hope he likes the model, but like I said, I mean, it's kind of off his brief, a bit of the lore and that we've worked to kind of make it work within the cult, but other than
so
I think
that's
they're really
Hikari.
happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
He was adamant about getting lure into cult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's scary.
I think it's ended up with a really interesting concept, that one, like coming back to life briefly, and I really like the way we work with Andrew to get all the different weapons in, which represent her various betrayers.
Yeah, definitely. So I think, I mean, like I said, the initial brief was quite vague when we did get it for her. It was just essentially they wanted a model that could be both a Kyrie and a Barracudan. So it kind of fitted just as fate would happen, what we were working on at the time anyway. So it was quite easy to kind of then just slot that model into a position within the cult that needed filling, if you will. So, I mean, in terms of concepting, it was probably the easiest of the three to get done, to be honest. Just like I said, because all the cards fell in the right place for her, and so
I think when we first got it, I think he did give us a decent amount of a profile, yes, one of the things he sent was he wanted it to be a generic model and have two, but the prize really is to introduce a new character and some background into the game. So we made it into a named person rather than just one, and I think I hope he doesn't mind. We made it into our fourth Utah, and I think she fits really well with the idea that he had, and then the one of the main bits that he said he definitely wanted was the bit where he could try and surprise somebody, and a very fast Kirai is something that's kind of funny to me, so I left that in. Kirai can suddenly speed up as long as she can stab you in the back.
I think my favourite thing that's come about since that model was released is the comparison to Theresa May as if she were in Thriller.
Yeah.
And Andy really nailing that energy.
I should have given that more thought and given her a name that played on that.
I think we have to talk about Ryujin, and also I spent like 15 minutes today rendering this video, so
you want to show it off?
There he is.
He's he's obviously the standout thing, and he's the one that took 2 years rather than a year to get out. So it's probably worth talking about him.
And he's very much an experiment.
There's nothing much to say about him. We can just skip it over. It's fine.
I'm quite excited by it. I mean, I've wanted to talk about that one ever since I got to try some of the later playtesting, and he's a lot of fun.
I think you and Andy should talk about this because you're the young players, but I just want to say one thing, which was...
We also disagree a lot.
Yeah. Ollie and I have very diametrically opposed opinions on the jug.
When I first sent this off to go to play testing with anybody, one of the things that I said was, this is going to be the model that most people are going to think are broken and then play it and think that it's underpowered for a while, and it's going to sort of go back and forth while they find out new things it can do. And I think that's happened so far, so I'm pretty happy with it at the moment. But yeah, you guys have actually tried the thing. What did you think about it?
For me, it was a giant target magnet. You put it on the table and you're just like, yes, it's going to get all the problems. It's just going to track them like a big lodestone. And for me, the price cost really distorted the way I built my warband. So I love the model, but it's not something me would like to field. On the other hand, there are plenty of young players who are very keen and happy to test it. Like Timmy on the Discord has been trying it out extensively, and Ollie is obviously a much greater fan than I am of it.
I've mostly just had it shoot stuff off the table.
Yep.
But I've been combining it with Bounty, which I think you need. And doing it to Ben helps because he always forgets to take it off.
Yeah. I got nothing. That's just true.
But
Although
now that
I was going to say my favorite bit is when you do it to get tomato, because he can't remove it again.
Yeah. Anyone who complains about Yatsumata should start playing Jung and just put bounty on it.
yeah, at some point I'll get this miniature, but I think I'll wait for the initial wave of purchases to go by. I just like the idea, having seen Chris's painted version. Holy
Oh, yeah.
moly!
He did a really good job.
So, did you actually sculpt this one?
No, this was Alistair. I'm glad, because if I were sculpting it, we wouldn't be talking about it having been released. I think it would intimidate me too much. And he just did a really, really good job, and was pretty patient with us going through a bunch of production-oriented changes. This is the first resin release that Bushido's done, and I can't speak to like the intentions for that going forward, but very much an experimental thing, working with the manufacturer and like talking it through. One of the good things, I do resin casting myself, and Alistair also does a bunch of resin casting himself, so we at least had a baseline of understanding. But our resin casting is very much like short orders, whereas producing for GCT requires a different level of expertise, or a different kind anyway. So yeah, he did a great job.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to get one of these as well. It does look amazing. Even though if I do move back up to Manchester, I'm going to have to look at Chris's one and look at mine and think, well, I can't paint them.
Yeah, is Chris's one the studio one, or is Chris's one
Well, I'm
just
sure
Chris's one?
He'll have his own, and I'm sure his own will be just as good as the studio one.
I mean, I'm just going to use disposable chocolate ones.
Yeah, I need to talk. Yeah, we need to talk about that. Might actually be able to make chocolate Ryujin.
Which would be pretty cool.
Is he immune to fire? I don't know how that's going to work.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. His aura makes the models inside it immune to fire.
He's a Kami too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so people have been asking about more of these. I think the thing is we'll wait and see. We're not committed to doing one for every faction all of a sudden. Neither are we saying never again. But other than that, we have no current plans, but we're not ruling it out either.
I'm conscious that we were planning on keeping this to an hour, and we're coming up for that, and we haven't even hit questions yet. It seems unfair, but we're going to have to leave the other winners behind, I guess. Like there's Axiom and there's Karu. At some point,
no one wants to talk about Axiom. So.
Well, yeah, we're going to get Adam onto the podcast for an episode probably about Axiom. So yeah, it's very weird. There's a model in this game called Axiom now, because like that's been his like online handle for the last
weird, yeah.
15 something years that I've known him. So right, so I think if you can prep some questions. I no doubt people do have more to say about Ryujin, but we have to respect people's time a little bit. If anyone needs to dash off, I'm aware that it's almost 10 o'clock, so just let us know. So, questions. You're the question master. Jesus Christ, there are some questions. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's we might not cover all of them. We'll see. So since we were talking about the Shiho and the Brotherhood and stuff, we have a question about if the Shiho are going to be the last faction we're going to see.
Are they going to be the last faction?
Or with some heavy hints that said person would like to see the Carb clan.
No, they definitely won't be the last faction. That's for sure, 100% on that. But what's after the Shiho is still up in the air, to be honest with you. I don't know if anyone knows. Generally, Development takes a while for the founding of it, foundations for a faction. So, yeah, I don't want to commit to a time frame for it, but they're definitely not the last faction.
No. Plenty of work to be done before that happens, eh?
Yeah.
Next.
Cycles. How often do we envision cycles coming around?
It's a good question. I mean, there was. Sorry, I'm just quick firing these. If anyone else wants to jump in, feel free to. The cycle decks, I think, there was never a real time frame set on them. The idea for them is that they would drive the story arc as we went forward, and so they would be themed to each cycle, and it would drive the story a little bit further, so the cards would relate to what was going on within the story arc. And that, I mean, initially we had hoped to do it every 12 months, but I think realistically, just with the commitment that goes in and the time frame, we're probably more likely looking to 18 months, maybe 2 years on a cycle. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those very difficult to put to a time frame to it, because there's a fair amount of work that goes into it. It's got to, I mean, they're fun and they're cool, but there's still a certain element of balance that has to be kept with each card you produce. And as Jason will tell you, the bigger the range gets, the harder that becomes, obviously. You know what I mean? There's a million avenues that one card could create. And so, yes, there will be more cycle decks. Time-wise, yeah.
I think it was planned to be every year in January, but especially because it pushes the story on, we need to have a certain amount of things released to tell stories about. And obviously this year has been terrible for everyone, but we haven't got the releases out that we were thinking we'd have. So I think we probably could get back to that point, but I don't know when we will get back to normal.
You kind of need them to be seeing the table as much as possible as well, don't you? And like 2020 has just been a pile of crap. So
yeah. I mean, the obvious one for the next, I think people can work this out, but the next one's going to tell some more story about the return of the Shiho, and if they're not out, it's not much point in releasing a bunch of cards about the Shiho that nobody can play with. So,
yeah, I think
like a certain hunter.
Sorry, what was that, Gordon?
Yeah.
Never mind.
It's a temple card with the hunter.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, is there a chat thing?
We put two cards out this year that I think people haven't been able to use because we just haven't got the releases out to go with.
Yeah, best laid plans.
Yeah.
Speaking of Carp, though, Carp are a major clan, so they wouldn't be able to be done like the Wolves as a sub-faction because they don't have fealty to anybody else. So that would be a big investment to do a Carp clan. I always envisioned Carp as being like Hornblower next to the Jung, who are Pirates of the Caribbean. So there would be a difference there, but that's a couple of years' work to make a faction that's distinct from all the others and has its own identity.
So
and that we're sure people want to buy. So
fish cavalry confirmed, yeah.
Yes, seahorses. They're horses.
Sounds good.
Seahorses.
Sea biscuit.
So the one thing I do know, if we ever do the Carp clan, they are having a theme called the Spice Girls. Somebody put that on Facebook, I think it was. I can't ignore that. That's brilliant.
Someone ask another question.
Yeah, I was going to say we've had several questions about Hiruto and Elder's brother. If people will actually be able to buy them again, especially with the brother coming back out.
The short answer is yes. The current Hiruto, the drunken Hiruto, was a limited model, so there will be an alternate version of him available. Again, it's difficult to put a timeline on that, but there will definitely be a version of that. And there's also something else going on around him that hopefully, I'm not quite sure how many people know too much, so I don't want to actually say too much. But there will definitely be him. He will be available. The eldest brother, on the other hand, wasn't a limited model, so he will get a general release at some point, probably sooner rather than later for him.
Awesome.
Please don't manage to get a hero to then missing an eldest brother. The errata, is that a timeline?
Soon. Trademark.
It is soon. I have a spreadsheet with all the changes that need to go on. I think there's 110 lines at the moment. Some of those are very minor clarifications that aren't going in the document and just need changing on the cards. Some of them are going in the big document. We also obviously need to get all the cards changed up with the new version number. So it's the errata is kind of ready, but also just needs a lot of work. Like the actual rules part is done. Apart from themes affecting their own models, we haven't decided whether we want to errata every theme or just put a general rule out for that yet. So me and Andy will discuss that at some point. But yeah, the actual changes are all there, and we're going to get it. That's literally what I'm working on at the moment, now that I've handed over the Shido file.
Is the plan to do like an annual errata, or is it just whenever it's necessary?
Yeah, so we used to do it every year after the UK Grandmasters event, so we'll probably stick with that. I have decided this year there's no balance errata in there because I just haven't seen the volume of games. So there's no point putting balance errata in from stuff that people are posting against playing their friends in their houses because you can't even go to a club. If we have a few large-scale tournaments and we see issues arising, then we'll do some balance errata next year. But there's almost nothing to change. We are watching stuff still. You know, we're aware of complaints about gorillas and certain monk masters who can have 10 activations and be unblockable.
Yes.
These things are, we know about them, but some people are saying it's fine for starters, and we haven't seen how they actually affect tournaments yet. So we're going to play it safe and not change anything apart from the misprints that we've got.
Alternate formats. I know that is the what's it called?
It's alternate tournament formats.
Yes. We had a question. Are we going to see more of those kinds of things?
I would like to. I think, as well as tournaments, I think we should do other things like narrative, organized play. The Honbasho format is a different tournament format where you play in a 1x1, and it's like Speed Bushido, or Bushido, maybe. It's super fast play. You can only win if your VIM kills the enemy VIM. Otherwise, you both lose. So it's very easy to play as a knockout tournament, which means you could do it at a convention or something. And if you lose early on, you can just go off and look at the rest of the convention. There's one problem with going to tournaments at conventions is that's the day gone where you can't go and look around all the stalls and new stuff and things. If you're going to win, that's great. If you're going to place in the middle of the field, then maybe you'd have had more fun playing a few games and then going looking around and buying stuff from the GCT stand instead. But yeah, we're I don't think we've announced much about it. I keep saying we are currently revamping the volunteer program, the retainers, and once we set that up and we get new volunteers for both for the demo team, the retainers, and for playtesters, we'll put out more organized play packs, which will include things like playing a narrative day, long-term narrative campaigns, other things like that. That's not just tournament formats as well.
Slight departure then. Dice and other accessories, because gamers love to accessorize their forces. Are dice and things like that returning, or is that just not a production question that's possible to answer?
No, dice are definitely returning. Well, we're hoping to have them the first quarter of 2021, but again, just the year that's been might push that slightly. But there are definitely dice. We'll definitely see them next year, and they'll definitely be cool.
Yeah, the art side of them is done. So
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, we've
production
done.
is the-
Yeah, it's the production side that's a bit problematic now. But yeah, we're definitely we're working through those. Like I said, hopefully we'll have those kind of ironed out within the next couple of weeks and that. But you know, production wise is still a couple of months, even once those are all ironed out and stuff. I mean, we're still hoping to early part of next year, but again, you know, just the way things are going lately, you just never know when production's going to get hit or where, and things just slow down. It's just inevitable of the state the world's in at the moment. But yes, is the short answer. Definitely coming. Talking of game accessories as well, we are working on some specific game mats as well. Again, I know I'm giving lots of information without tying anything to that, and I know I do that quite a lot. But the game mats are in. Again, some of the art for that is already done. So again, it will be, you know, once we get the final art for those done, we'll go into production and that those.
cool.
Ooh. I'd like one of those. Right. Oh, we have a. It is. One second. Let me just read that one again. This is effectively it's congratulating you on managing to keep expanding the game for a whole decade, but also is there like an intentional plan for keeping the game expandable?
Yes, I mean, from the offset, I think when the game was designed, it was key to keep each faction unique in a way, so that I mean, you will always have some cross-faction contamination, but the idea was to keep each faction playing differently. So if you played the Jung, it felt like you were playing the Jung, and if you played Prefecture, it felt like you were playing Prefecture. So it was always intent to do that from the offset. I mean, as the factions have grown, I mean, both in the internal factions, but also the number of factions, that becomes harder and harder. But I'm glad that's not my job anymore. I leave it to Jason to deal with now. But in terms of the intent was always there. I think, like I said, it's multifaceted the way we do that. One is more factions. Obviously, you've seen with the Wolf Clan now, there will be more sub-factions within the factions, just to try prohibit first the faction bloat, but also that cross-contamination you get within each faction. And so hopefully they still feel, and I think they do. I mean, I'm quite confident that they do. That factions still play very differently, and they feel different when you play it.
I think prior to the Minamoto release, some people had some concern about like, well, it's another samurai faction who have armor, but they really do feel very different from the Prefecture. So
well,
yeah.
I mean, credit for them definitely goes to Jason on that one. I mean, he did a lot of work specifically. I mean, it was in the design to make them feel very different, because it was kind of again a concern for me, even when the Minamoto got, you know, started bearing fruit and they were going to clearly be the next faction. It was like, you know, how do they play very differently? And I mean, if you look at them in face value, as Ben says, they appear to be another samurai faction, and you've already got elements of that within the Ito. You've got that entire development kind of within the Prefecture, but they play very differently. You know, the style they play, the way you would list build with them, they play extremely different from one another. And like I said, Jason done a fantastic job on the Minamoto. I think they, by far, maybe my favorite faction at the moment, other than Colt. I'll always be loyal to the Colt.
It's something that I did a lot with the new edition as well, especially the Ito changes to make them very different playing from the Prefecture. Ito have got the most sort of fantastical stuff of all the samurai, so they were already quite different. But I think anybody who's played them in both editions will say that they're very different now from how either of the other two play. And then obviously we have to do it again because we've got the final promised samurai faction, and they have to be different again. When I first suggested we do them in Minamoto, Gordon did say, you know, you're going to have to tell me how is this going to be different. So that was I think it was a big 2-page explanation of what we were going to do that was going to make them.
Could just said armor, all the armor.
So yeah, I think that is a big part of it, and the faction identity is something I'm very aware of when we add anything new in. So, like for example, Andy's model for the Brotherhood was adding an ability to 2 factions, I think, that they didn't already have. So we did have to look at removing states from both Ito and Cult and say, is this going to be a problem? Is this something they shouldn't have?
Yes, you removed a specific type from my model as well. I was gutted.
Yes. As an example of that, yeah, he was Shisai originally because he's a Shisai of Michi. But we decided that would combo really well with the Shisai, who are not the same religion.
Yeah,
Look, he's possessed by an evil spirit. Strange things happen.
It's not quite the same.
So yeah, that was something that again, it's kind of like the faction identity mixing with the background. Let's not have the 2 priests of opposite religions buff each other for just because they have the same title of priest, effectively.
Big brain plays, Jason. Big brain plays.
The search for extra keywords, I think, is ongoing.
Gordon especially is very keen on stopping like we spent a lot of time doing new prefecture concepts because he doesn't just want to keep releasing, this is another samurai, this is another samurai. They've got a lot of samurai and they do pretty much everything we can think of to make them do. So if we want another samurai, we have to say, how is this one different?
He's armed with rockets?
Sorry?
He's armed with a rocket launcher?
Close.
That would be different.
Not far from the truth.
But yeah, the making sure that we're not releasing models for models' sake, but still staying onto every faction is getting the same number of releases. Hopefully should avoid model bloat. It'll all be different things, and focusing people towards the sub-factions will really help with that. Like if we've got a lot of sub-factions for almost all the factions thought of already. So if we wanted to release more, I don't know, Savage Wave, we could say, hey, we've got this sub-faction idea. You can play this, and a lot of them are separate to the main thing. So it's not just adding models to Savage Wave, it's adding a whole new option without creating much more complexity in the game. So hopefully it'll work.
Speaking of background, we have a question about is there going to be a book people can buy with all of it in?
Now I'm going to sound like a politician. Yes, yes, but again, the timeline to this is kind of skewed. So the initial time is we were hoping to have everything in layout by the end of this year. That timeline is gone. It's totally unrealistic at this point. But there's a lot of work has already been done on it in multiple elements. So we work in terms of a lore book, but it will also be a campaign book. So there will be campaign elements, campaign rules. There'll be some optional rules. We're looking at working for internal buildings, fighting within buildings or caves or whatever the case may be. As I said, a narrative campaign, and then obviously a large portion of lore that will cover, the history, the structure up until this kind of point where we're at now. I don't want to commit to a time frame to it, but for the amount of work that's gone into it, it will definitely be next year, without a doubt. Those kind of things are always quite nice to launch at shows, just because it's nice to be able to show people the work you've put in and, to engage with players and that. But, I don't know what next year will be like, to be honest, in terms of that. So we might have to just look at some alternate ways, to better engage. And as Jason said earlier, we're looking at some kind of narrative online campaign and those kind of things that will hopefully, better engage players without, being able to go to events or shows and that kind of stuff.
I think there's quite a few questions which are around timelines, timeframes for stuff.
Yes,
and I think
I was going to finish off with a completely different question, mostly for Jason.
Well, we've got, I reckon. Oh, sorry, I was going to say, if we carry on for like another 10 minutes, and then we'll try and do another of these before long where we deal with the other questions. Does that work for everyone?
Yeah,
Sure.
yes, all good. Yeah.
I know a couple of you got work pretty early in the morning.
It's not that early.
Oh, well, anyway, I'm giving people an out. Go.
So I have a question here about who's the best Bushido player in the Q&A session, and what are the thoughts of game developers when players start beating them at their own game?
I can kick him from this chat if you want.
Well, I can tell you who isn't the best Bushido player. I don't know. I'm not going to put my hand up and say who's the best, but it's kind of a running joke that GCT just stands for Gordon Cheats at Tournaments. Because apparently that's the only way I can win. I don't cheat at tournaments, just for the record, but let's just say I'm not the best.
Okay, I am the reason there was an errata every year after the UK Masters. When I would discover weird exploits in the previous designer's rules writing. I would be like, yes, this is clearly how it's intended, so I'd play that way, and then we'd turn up at the tournament, and Toby would be like, what are you doing? Like, you wrote it, this is how it works. Unfortunately, I've never won a Masters. I've got to the final table several times. I think 3 times I've got to the final table. And I always get beaten out. But having said that...
So what you're saying is, by the only metric that we actually have to quantify who the best player is, you're not the best player.
Indeed. But I will say, losing on that final table has actually been pretty good for the game, because I'm not good at creating something. I can design in a confined boundary, but once you're like, you could do anything, I'm like, design paralysis. What do I do? Another samurai for prefecture.
More pass tokens.
So
That's always the answer.
yeah, so like I would have never have come up with James Hasker's like Crane Tengu at all. Like that would have never occurred to me. I'm slightly gutted I lost to Adam, and I understand how and why, and you know, so far I've trashed him every other game I've played. So I am 2 for 3. No, we had that TTS trial where my alphas just smashed him. It was fantastic. How do I feel when people start beating me? It's a very interesting insight into how stuff I wasn't expecting to work suddenly, like, how did it beat me is how what I'm very good at working out very quickly.
I think what I really like about the tournaments, because I'm shit, so I always come bottom half the table, but what I really like is seeing what the different metas have figured out, because being a smaller game, you're siloed in different parts of the country and the world. And so what we're doing in Portsmouth is nothing to do with what people in Manchester or Birmingham or whatever are doing. So when all these different metas come together with the people from France and stuff, it's really interesting to see the different ways that I can be completely pasted across the table.
Yeah, I always remember, I think it was the second ever Grandmasters where all the Swedish guys showed up with this Righteous Warriors list. And they were like, it's unbeatable, why is anybody bringing anything else? And then they all came bottom half of the table. And, you know, they'd all played it, and it was obviously somebody was trashing everybody with it in their meta, and then they sort of brought it and found out why it wasn't the best thing in the game.
Yeah, what I find really strange is Glasgow has a very small player base, but does very well in tournaments across all the competitive games. It's very strange to me that this happens.
It's because you're all just horrible people.
Well,
you know.
yes. I also find it funny that nearly all of us who, like Jim and I, live in Scotland, and you know, we turn up and we're representative of Scotland, but neither of us are Scottish. I come from the literal opposite side of the globe.
for the second part, it's not so much getting beaten, but it's when somebody does something and you just sort of think, oh, I hadn't thought of that. And then you have to sort of look it up and make sure that it still works all right in the rules. And once that you realise that the rules are fine with what they're doing, that's a big relief. Like,
Yes.
when they find some interaction you haven't thought of, my first thing is, oh my god, I hope we didn't write the rules this way, and then you look it up and like, oh no, we wrote it correctly, so it works. The rules can handle this. That's the big relief. And yeah, I think I've dropped one game in every tournament I've played in since the first Grandmasters, so I do get beaten regularly.
Yeah, I think you came third at the last time you had the South, didn't you?
Yeah, I think so. I've got a trophy somewhere.
In that tournament, it was looking really good until about half the people just had to cancel at the last minute because it was Mother's Day.
What the hell?
It was weird.
Yep, that was the premiere of the dog missile.
Oh god.
All right, so how are we doing? We've got 4 minutes until my arbitrary cut-off time that I'm okay if you overrule me on.
Yep. Go on, quick fire, guys.
Right. Okay. Are there any plans for completely different type of game, like cooperative or single player scenario type game? So the example they're giving in here is things like exploring a Bakemono cave or things like that. But that's obviously a very different thing.
That sounds like a board game.
Yeah, it's, funny that, isn't it? I'm sure. Possibly, yes, is the answer. Yeah.
The one thing we will say is that the campaign/lore book is definitely going to have asymmetrical scenarios, so you can have things that aren't just the same objective for both sides. You can have like an attacker and a defender, and possibly even like a last stand where you're outnumbered, or like a 300 style scenario where there's a narrow pass and you have to defend it with your 2 samurai against an entire 10 model warband. So there's going to be different styles of game in there. As for co-op and scenario, that might be something we look at in a different format.
I've been quite tempted to do a little competition of people doing scenarios based around Ryujin, almost like one-player scenarios where you have to take on this massive kami. But yeah, we'll see.
Could be interesting, definitely.
Yeah.
Right.
TikTok.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it. I think. Oh yes, speaks community events driving affecting the fluff.
Oh yeah, we've mentioned this a few times, so we haven't. Obviously, there's not much point in doing community events.
No, this is probably more a 2021 thing, hopefully.
But yeah, I've started work on this. We've spoken to Alistair about how far the plot's going to progress in the lore book. So when the book comes out, we know where we're going to be exactly, and from there we're going to use a worldwide campaign in 2 parts to determine what happens, probably with the dragon little spat that they're having. So the idea at the moment is that you will play games at your local club, store, and at home, and you can just report those online, and they will determine the general flow of the campaign. So if there's some big battles and you say I'm fighting for this faction, then your results will help that faction win those battles. And then we'd like to do multiple Grandmasters events. And then if it gets to the point in the story where 2 characters are fighting each other in a one-on-one duel, the winner will decide who wins.
Oh.
So it's another way to affect the story as we go on. Now, it might not mean that the other one gets killed, as usually happens in these stories. It might not even mean that the person you choose to win comes out in the advantageous position, but you will get some input and some choice into how it all unfolds. But that does depend on the world getting better at some point.
Yeah, communal events are hard when you can't actually meet up.
Yeah. Sorry, go on. Somebody was asking about more online events, and I think if the RDE World Cup is successful, then I can't see why we wouldn't do more. But I don't know if we can.
I'm going to jump on that as a segue just quickly. Right, we sort of dragged our feet a little bit on that, and that's me. Some sort of like personal reasons why I haven't really got round to seeing it through to seeing the last few things through. So we will be starting it on the 8th of November. Wanted to start it on the 1st, but I realised we probably need to give people a little bit more time rather than just pouncing on it now. Tickets are now live, and I am going to pop up a URL for that any second now. Except I have to remember how to use Streamlabs. Text. Add source. This is thrilling. It's taking a while to load. The document is still up for people who have already had the link, and you'll be able to find the link in there it is, in the event page, which I am doing now. Arial. This is really fiddly. This is not how you meant to use this. Why has it changed that? Oh, it's changed everything. I'm breaking it all. This is why people come to us for the professional. Oh look, I'm moving the background now. I don't know why I tried to do that. There we go. It's small now. I'm not even going to try and make that look pretty. That's the URL. So tickets are $5. We're going to give some free stuff out to everyone who plays all their games, and those will be shipped to you. No shipping. That's part of the £5. And Mastercraft and Miniatures. That's my other T-shirt somewhere. I will be doing some prizes. GCT have committed to do some prizes, and also a guy who is professional level painter but doesn't have a professional service has offered to do some painting for a prize as well. So we're still accepting other prizes if people want to offer them. It's all going to be a bit experimental. If it all goes terribly, we'll give you your money back. Just want to see how it goes. We will take questions on that. I'll arrange something on Facebook and Discord for people to throw extra questions at us, which I'll no doubt have.
Sorry, I saw a notification saying Gordon would like to speak, but I don't know if that was a button mash or an actual he would like to speak.
No, just pushing the wrong buttons again.
Okay.
Right. So we do have a few questions left in the document, but I think some of them are like rules related and stuff like that. So maybe we'll try and address them.
Really?
Another point.
Cool.
But we've probably gone long enough for everyone for one day.
I think so.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
cheers for joining us, Gordon, Jason, and Andy.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Always a pleasure.
Well, no, thank you for hosting.
Thanks for hosting.
Yeah, no worries. Sorry about all the difficulties.
I think at least one of them you can't be blamed for.
No,
Just one.
just the one. I get that one let off. Cool. Okay. Right. I'm going to click the end button. So.
Thank you. Thank you,
Cheers.
gentlemen.
Yeah.